Hey, friends. Okay, I am sorry that I am a few minutes late here. I had a training that I was a part of, so I apologize for being a few minutes late. I was on a training with an incredible group of women who are building their businesses, and yeah, we just went a little bit over, and then of course had a few little tech issues, which seems to happen. And I have a squeaky chair tonight. Okay, I am so pumped for this conversation with you tonight. If you are just joining in, I would love for you to drop a comment below. Tell me where you're from. If you are watching this in post and you are not on with us live, I would love for you to just drop a comment. Tell me what part of the country you're from or what country you're from. I know we have some people in here from different countries. So tell me where you're from. And I'm going to just give it 2 seconds to make sure that we are good to go. Okay. Okay, here we go. Here we go. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. If you just joined us, drop a comment below. Sorry about that. Just getting set up on my end, and was a few minutes behind. So tell me hi. Let me know you're here. Okay, so I want to talk to you tonight about a game changer download. This download for me, this discovery for me, absolutely changed the game on how I run my businesses. It changed the game for me on how I communicate in my marriage, how I am as a mom with my kids, and how I do all the things. I get messages like, how do you do all these things? You have multiple businesses and teenagers and kids, and how do you hold it together, keep it together? Well, the truth is, for a really long time, I didn't. I had to go through a very, very, very painful process and a lot of life experiences to learn how to do the hard things in a healthy way. And so that is what I want to share with you tonight, is just this game changer discovery. I see a few of you joining in. Drop a comment below. Tell me where you're from. And I would love for this time, if you have questions as we go, just drop a comment, because this is a conversation that I would love to have with you, not just talking at you. We are together in this. So this discovery for me is something that I would go so far as to say saved my life. And I know that that might sound a little bit extreme for some of you, but I say that it saved my life because it is pretty extreme to feel like you are losing your marriage. It's pretty extreme to feel like you're losing your mind and your sanity. It's extreme to feel like you are losing yourself, that you aren't really sure if you know yourself anymore. You're not really sure if you even like yourself anymore. Those are kind of extreme things, right? It's extreme also to feel like you're losing connection with your children. A lot of you in here, drop a comment if you've got kids. And I think one of the most painful things as a mom is to sow and to invest and to pour into children, and maybe to have a child or multiple children who either go their own way or you have different challenges with them. A lot of the women that I've had the privilege and opportunity of coaching and working with have a difficult child, whether that's through learning needs, whether that's through personality things, or whatever it is. And those things can cause dynamics in our family that, one, make us as moms want to pull our hair out and feel crazy. We end up in cycles of just feeling like such a bad mom. We feel like a failure. We feel like we can't ever do enough or be enough. And I think at the end of the day, it's terrifying to feel like we might be losing connection with our kids. So when I say that this discovery saved my life, I don't think it's too extreme to say that, because if you sum up the total of all those things I told you, losing your mind, losing yourself, losing your business, potentially losing a relationship with your spouse or kids, those are extreme things. And I know some of you are in situations right now where one or all or several of those things, you feel like you're stuck. It feels extreme. Some of you might be on the other end of the spectrum, where you're listening to this and you're like, okay, there's no massive fires burning. I just feel like I can't quite get on top of my life. I always feel behind. I feel overwhelmed with my schedule. The to-do list is never ending, and I just feel like I'm never going to get on top of it. So drop a comment below and tell me kind of where you see yourself on that spectrum. We're on different ends of the spectrum, so I would love to hear where you're at. So when this discovery came into my life, I was at a point in my life where I was drowning. I was drowning in my to-do list that never ended. I started having panic attacks, and one day I was driving down the road, I was talking to an insurance agent, and literally had to hang up the phone on him because my throat closed up. I was overwhelmed with so much anxiety. My throat closed up, I couldn't breathe. I was coughing, trying to like just get air and try to talk to him. I had tears running down my face. I'm literally like bawling, like, but not meaning to cry. I couldn't breathe. I had gone so long without air. It was like literally my throat was closed. And this started to become a regular thing. I'd be in the kitchen getting something, panic would hit, something, and I didn't know it was panic at this point, but something would hit, my throat would close, and it would be 60 seconds, 90 seconds, and the kids were literally at one point going, do we call 911? Like, what do I do? Because I'm seeing stars blacking out. I finally went to a doctor, and he was like, well, I think what's going on is you have some weird form of like exercise-induced asthma. Hey, Beth, I see that you are on. Hey, friend. Welcome from Franklin, Tennessee, Thompson Station, Tennessee. So if you're just joining, drop a comment, tell me where you're from, and give a little shout out. Love to see who's here. So I was struggling with this, and this doctor said it's exercise-induced asthma, which I knew that wasn't accurate because I'd exercised my whole life. I was a Division I athlete. I worked out through pregnancies, and I'm like, this makes no sense. Exercise-induced asthma, like I haven't changed anything. So then it just kept happening. And I was like, well, maybe I'm allergic to food, or maybe some, whatever. And then we live in Nashville, just south of Nashville, and somebody suggested, why don't you go to a vocal specialist in Nashville? Because I've heard that singers, oftentimes their vocal cords will get so strained. Maybe it's from all the speaking you do, and your throat just closes up or something. So I'm like, okay, that sounds logical. So I went to this Nashville vocal specialist that has worked with all the Nashville stars. They put a tube down my throat, put one down my nose, kind of graphic and gross, to see if there was anything blocking my airways. And what did they discover? Nothing. All of that for nothing. They did find, however, that my throat was closing, and that they gave me some specific exercises that they give these vocalists to do when their throat tightens and seizes. It was almost like my throat was having a seizure. So in these moments, it wasn't even just moments of panic and stress. It would be like, it would just build and build and build and build. So for some of you, maybe you've experienced panic attacks, but for me, it didn't really feel like just this attack. It felt like it was just a way of life. I just lived stressed. And so what would happen is like my body would finally just seize up. And I knew that if I didn't do something, this life that I was living at this point was not going to work for me. And it was this feeling, so I said drowning at the beginning, but it really at the end of the day, when I laid my head on my pillow at night, I was suffocating. And I felt like I'm literally suffocating in my own skin, and I don't know how to stop this. And this was the season when I was at the pinnacle of my business. I'm making more money than I've ever made. I'm speaking on bigger stages than I've ever spoken on. There's accolades, there's traveling, there's all this stuff. It was exciting. And yet, I remember crying myself to sleep at night. I remember trying to find ways to power through and keep growing and skilling up, and constantly just feeling like if I could just be a little better, or do a little better, or grow a little more, or skill up a little more, I could handle the stress better. I could just manage my life better. Maybe I just need time blocking or some time management skills. And so it was at this, and I share all that context to say it was at this place where from the outside looking in, it was all together. Like I had it all together. And when I peel back the layers of what was really going on for me, that was part of the issue, was the extreme fear that I was feeling inside, that at any moment it was all going to fall apart and it was going to be my fault, that it was going to be on me if the whole thing came crashing down, that I felt so much weight and responsibility. And some of you may not be able to relate to the business part of things, or building something and feeling like it's going to fall apart, but I wonder for some of you, if you are the glue that holds your family together, if you are the keeper of your family's schedule, if you are the one that plans every single vacation, if you are the one that makes sure the kids have everything ready for school, and you're managing all of your finances, and you're running the kids, you're doing the PTO, you're making sure your husband's in line, you're doing it all, and you feel the same feeling that I felt. You feel like you're drowning, or you feel like you're suffocating under the weight of it all. And deep down inside, you're afraid. At any moment, you're going to break. That it's a house of cards and it's going to come crashing down, and the whistle's going to be blown, and people are going to know. They're going to see that you don't have it all together. So that adds to the fear, right? Is that breaking point. We fear the breakdown because we're so strong. We're so capable. We shouldn't break down. And so this place where I was at, I'd probably sum it up. And I'd love to know if any of you can relate to this. Please, again, drop a comment. I was unhappy. There was some days where I literally felt suicidal. I felt crazy. And I felt like I just needed to stop the madness. At the same time, I felt confused because it felt so amazing. I had all this stuff that I should be so grateful for. I have the family, I have the husband, I have the finances, I have all these things. So there was confusion that then sets in, that then circulates back to unhappy because I'm shooting on myself all day long, feeling so guilty about the feelings I'm having of why am I so unhappy? What's wrong with me? I felt lonely. I felt extremely disconnected. There was this disconnect growing between my husband Nathan and I, and some of you know us personally. Some of you in this group were strangers. My husband's name is Nathan. There was this growing lack of intimacy that I felt, and that was adding to it of, oh no, the marriage is falling apart. Oh no, let me try to fix that too. Let me try to hold that up too. Let me juggle that ball. Let me just add one more thing to my plate and try to get us to counseling or get us to this or read this book or do this devotion or this podcast together. I was trying to juggle all of it. And at the end of the day, I felt like a failure with my kids. I felt that growing disconnect there too. I had some serious struggles with one of my kids in particular and the things that she had gone through. And that's another story for another day. But there were some serious struggles there. And again, as I said at the beginning, any time as a mom, when you have sown and invested time and love and tears and care and sacrifice, all of us as moms do that. We do it differently, but we all do that, right? We sacrifice ourselves for our children. And when that payback, if you will, that of connection and relationship isn't there with that specific child or with your children, it can be heartbreaking. And it can make you feel like it just pushes, for me, it pushed the mom fail button. Like, I am such a failure. And then at the end of the day, you just feel like you're failing at everything because you can't do it all perfectly or right or good or whatever it is that you fill in the blank with. So in spite of all of this, in spite of all those things I was feeling, I should say, I was feeling those things in spite of all I'd accomplished. So some of you may not be as extreme as being able to like pinpoint, okay, I'm working all the time and doing this and running all over. Maybe that's not you, but maybe it looks a little more subtle for you. Maybe it's you're stuck doing it all the time in a servant way. So maybe it's not like through the work way, but yours is a little more subtle. You're serving on the PTA, you're serving at your church. Every time somebody calls with a need, somebody needs a meal, you are running it to every single neighbor in need. You are saying yes every single time you wanted deep down inside to say no, but you felt like you should. You felt like you had to. You felt like somebody's counting on you. Somebody's depending on you and expecting you to say yes. So yours may not look like mine, but you're still running around, doing all the things, being all the things for everyone. And you have that same feeling of, I feel like I'm drowning and I feel like I'm trapped by this. So all of that stuff led me to a discovery that I want to share with you tonight. It was a discovery that I was an addict. I was an addict, you guys, and not in the normal sense of the word, but I was addicted nonetheless. And what I was addicted to was doing. I was addicted to the busyness and solving and fixing and doing things. So doing for me, it had become my drug of choice. Maybe you've heard me share on this before, but hang with me on this for a second if you've never heard me share on it, because it is a concept that literally revolutionized my life. Doing for me had become a drug of choice. What I mean by that is the same way that a drug addicted person uses that substance for a hit, to feel better, to numb out, to escape. I needed the hit of doing, of solving, of achieving, of accomplishing, to be able to power through the hard thing. So if I was in a moment and there was something hard that I was experiencing, I needed the hit of doing something and fixing it and just feeling useful in the moment, because man, I didn't like feeling helpless. I didn't feel like feeling powerless or like I wasn't contributing. So I need to do something here. I need to solve it. I need to fix it. And I jump in and come to the rescue for everybody. Rescue for my husband, rescue for my kids. I thought for my husband, I thought for my kids. I spoke for them. They didn't need to, because I was already on it. I was on it, fixing it and solving it and doing it all for them all the time. And it gave me a hit. I felt valued. I felt special. I felt needed. And it gave me this high of sorts, the same way drugs can give you a high. It gave me a high that helped me through the loneliness. The reason I turned to doing, oftentimes, because underlying most of what I was experiencing was a deep-seated loneliness. That loneliness and unhappiness with where my life was at, but embarrassed to tell anybody that I was struggling with those things. Embarrassed to actually admit that on the outside you see these things, and they're not false, they're not true, they were all real, but yet underlying them there was this undercurrent of unhappiness and loneliness that I was embarrassed of and I was afraid to tell anybody about. And so doing was my drug that gave me the high that stopped that feeling. I could numb out and not feel the loneliness. I could numb out and not feel how maybe at that point in my marriage, I remember telling Nathan, my husband, I remember telling him I would rather be alone. I would rather be alone in this house than with you, because with you and lonely is worse than truly alone and lonely. I'd have a reason to feel lonely if we weren't in proximity, if we weren't together, right? And so there was that going on. I was lonely and doing all this work and feeling more and more and more distant from him and my family and all that stuff. But it felt like I was stuck. Everyone needs me. Everyone depends on me. How am I ever going to break this? The other thing why doing became my drug of choice that I wonder could be true for you, possibly, is when I was doing, I felt seen, I felt heard, and I felt validated in that doing. And I wonder for you if that's the same. So many women in this group and women that I have talked to, women that I've coached, have said those three things. They don't feel seen. They don't feel validated. They don't feel heard. And so when we turn to doing or accomplishing or solving or fixing something, even if it's serving, we can take service and do the same thing with this. And if our motive is to stop and numb out of our loneliness and our pain or our unhappiness, we're using that thing as our drug of choice, serving, doing for others so that we feel validated, so that we feel seen. It's that hit, it's the temporary high. And also, I liked to feel needed. I wanted to feel valuable because I was contributing, as I said already. So those were really important. And I think also I turned to doing because it's familiar. And it was easy. So some of you are really good at what you do. You're really good at the work that you do. You're really good at the business you run. You're really good at your career. You're really, really good at being a mom. And so when you hit something that's hard for you, maybe your marriage is really hard. Maybe a relationship with your mom is really, really difficult and strained. Maybe the relationships, like I said, with one of your children is really hard. Let's take any one of those things. You hit something hard. What do? Rather than leaning in, learning skills, learning a pathway forward through the hard, learning how to do the hard in a healthy way, what you've done and what I did for years is we turn to doing because it's familiar and it will stop what we feel over here, which is failure. We turn to something familiar so that we can feel validated and worth something and respected. And it comes easy in work. It comes easy in this thing that we're gifted in and good at. So that's why we keep turning to it. So I want to introduce you to this concept of something called the connection dilemma. The connection dilemma is what happens when you and I continue to turn in that moment where we're faced with a life circumstance. It's hard, we don't know how to navigate it, we don't have the skills, we don't have the pathway forward, we don't know what to do. It's the same song, 100th verse in a relationship, we're in this cycle. we hear ourselves saying the same things over and over, and we don't like that. We don't like how it makes us feel like a failure or guilty or ashamed of how we reacted or responded or whatever it is. So then we turn to this familiar thing of doing. The more we do that, what happens is we create a gap. We create a disconnect between us over here, in this present moment with what's happening. And what this moment is inviting us to is maybe more authentic connection, a breakthrough in that relationship, letting go of that relationship. I'm just using a relationship as an example, but relationships are all over our life. So they're a great example because they bring up a lot of stuff for us, right? So in that moment, this is hard and we don't have the skills or know what to do. So we don't like how we feel like a failure. So we go over here to something that's easier. And the more we do that, we go over here, we expect to feel validated. And maybe we do. Maybe we get on stage, or maybe our coworkers tell us amazing, or maybe we have a friend that's like, hey, you're killing it over there. Or we post something, we look on social media and we look at the vanity metrics. How many likes did we get? How many comments did we get? And we look to those things to boost our ego for a minute, because our ego over here is bruised, it's hurt, and we don't like that feeling. So the more we do that, what starts to happen is we create a disconnect with ourselves. We create a disconnect with the person because we're escaping to doing, because it feels good, we get the hit and the high that we're not getting over here, and we also disconnect from ourselves. And that's what I want to talk to you about, is that disconnect, that connection dilemma that you get stuck in, where you're expecting to feel more connected over here because you're doing something you love and you're good at it, but it leaves you wanting. It leaves you feeling more disconnected than ever, because at the end of the day, it's not the source. It's not the thing that's going to validate you and tell you who you really are. You are not what you do. And yet you continue to turn to it. I continued to turn to it for the validation I needed, the value I needed to tell me who I was. And at the end of the day, it can't do that for you. You can't serve your way to your identity. I can't climb a ladder to my way to a new identity. It's all just doing. It's just what I produce. It's just something I do. It's not who I am. And so when I continue to do that, I disconnect further and further and further from my true self. And so one thing that I do with women is help them reclaim that true self. Peel back the layers. Because see, our true self gets buried. It starts to get buried in this process. It gets lost among all the things that we do, all the roles that we play, all the responsibilities that we're carrying. Our true self gets lost. And in those moments where we are more and more disconnected from ourselves, we find ourselves like what I was sharing at the beginning, where I wasn't happy. I didn't like myself anymore. I wasn't really even sure who I was. I was so disconnected from the true Jenny Ray. I didn't even know who she was anymore. And I kept associating it with what I was producing. And so what WIT is all about. Some of you have asked, what is this? So many of you do whatever it takes right now in your life. And what that has meant for you up until now, and I hope to reframe this for you, what it has meant for you up until now is put your head down, try harder, blood, sweat, and tears, grind it out, power through, push through, hustle harder, make it happen. It's all on you. When you think of whatever it takes, that might be the mindset that you have, is do more, push harder, drive through, ignore yourself, at all costs, just get it done, right? Isn't that what you've done maybe a lot up until now? I know it's what I've done a lot of up until now. A lot up until several years ago, I should say. That's what WIT meant to me. But it's different now. The whatever it takes life is all about owning your life, not your husband's, not your kids, not your bosses, not your coworkers. Because see, when we're jumping in and solving and fixing and doing for everybody else, we're actually taking on their responsibilities, their life. It's false responsibility. And yet what we feel so weighted down by is all our responsibilities. But I wonder how many of those responsibilities are false responsibilities. I know that when I uncovered this and started to see this in my life, I was able to peel back layer after layer after layer and go, oh my gosh, I thought that was mine to do. Oh my word, I thought I had to own that and own that and own that and own that, down to like thinking for my kids and doing everything for them. And my husband, it was like, I don't know, I guess I thought my way was better. I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was motivated by, but I was able to strip it off. And so whatever it takes means, what wit means is to own your life, your time, your energy, so that you can do the hard things in a healthy way. And you can't really get to the place where you're owning your life, nobody else's, your time, your energy, your emotions, unless you know what those are. And right now it's probably so like meshed with somebody else's, or so confused because, again, you say yes when you want to say no, and it's just all smushed together. You don't really own your energy because you feel like you're constantly driven by doing things because you should. That's not owning your energy. You don't own your time or your schedule. It's out of control. Everybody else decides for you. There's a little booklet I read years ago called The Tyranny of the Urgent. And it's just this whole concept of we get tyrannized or ruled by the urgent on a daily basis. Whatever pops up, whatever fires are burning, that's the urgent thing. And we do it. We feel like we have to do it. And so wit does not mean whatever it takes. The wit life is not, it does not encompass this hustle harder, grind more. That is not my message. I've done that, friend. I have done that, and I nearly burnt out, lost my marriage, and was so unhappy with my life. It doesn't mean that. Now, it doesn't mean that I sit back and just like let my life happen to me. If you know anything about me, there's very few people that will probably outwork me. I am a hard worker. But I have learned now how to do the hard things, how to overcome obstacles that life throws my way in a healthy way. And one thing that I want to just close this out with, I hope, first off, I know that I'm not telling you how to solve all this tonight. I'm not giving you 5 steps for anything. There will be a time and place for that. But tonight, I hope that or tomorrow, whenever you watch this during the day, that maybe this discovery for yourself, that has doing become your drug of choice. How free would you be if you didn't have to turn to doing? If there was a new way, what could life be like if you didn't run from the hard and turn to doing, and in so doing, disconnect further from yourself, know yourself even less than you do right now? How powerful could you be? How empowered would you be? It is an amazing thing when a woman gets reconnected to her true self, apart from all the things she does, all the roles she plays, all her achievements and accolades. When she discovers who she is apart from that, truly, genuinely apart from that stuff, she is a powerful woman. She can stand in her power, she can stand in her voice, she can own all of it, all of her femininity, all of her spunk, all of that fire, all of it, however you're wired. It's so amazing to see. And so what I want you to do, I want you to do something for me tonight. I want you to do a journal exercise for me. And it's going to be super easy because it's literally one word. You, busy woman, can find time to do this one word exercise. And what I want you to do is I want you on a piece of paper, just grab a piece of paper or grab a little sticky note or grab your cell phone and open up your notepad. And I want you to write the one word down that you hear yourself say the most. What is one adjective that you hear yourself say all the time about your life? When you think about your life or a circumstance that's difficult right now in your life, or that you're frustrated by, or that you wish you could overcome, like what is the word that you constantly hear yourself say? For me, I'll give you a quick example. For me, and you probably won't be able to see this because it'll be backwards, and my handwriting is probably a little bit like chicken scratch, but this is my word. So overwhelm was my word. And when I stopped and just got quiet, 60 seconds, I had to evaluate what is the one thing I hear myself say all the time. And I was like, oh, I didn't really have to think hard. It was overwhelmed. I said it all the time. I'm so overwhelmed, overwhelmed about the kids. I'm overwhelmed about the business and what's happening in this. And I'm overwhelmed about that. And that was my word. And why do I want you to do this exercise? I want you to identify the one word right now that today you hear characterizing your life. The one word you're saying. Because if you identify this one word and you can begin to create the shift from that feeling, this overwhelm that I feel, this is the hard thing that I'm trying to avoid. This is the thing I don't want to feel. And so what was I doing? When I felt overwhelmed, doing was my drug of choice. I didn't want to feel overwhelmed. It was yucky. It felt like I was suffocating again. It felt like I was drowning. It felt like there was bricks on my chest. I didn't want to feel overwhelmed. So I turned to doing, because of course, if you do more, it's going to stop feeling overwhelmed. I could check off my to-do list. I could get it. If I could just get it all done, I wouldn't feel overwhelmed. If I could just communicate better in my marriage, I wouldn't feel so overwhelmed every time we have conversations. So I'll turn to just doing to make it feel better. And in the process, I disconnected more. So I felt more overwhelmed. It just was this big circle. So by identifying this one word, you can begin to create the shift from whatever that is, from you turning to doing as your drug of choice. You can find a new path forward. And I'm going to give you that path. This month, we're going to be talking about all sorts of things. But remember this, friend, you cannot stop what you don't see. So you're frustrated, you're feeling all these things, or overwhelmed, or you're feeling tired, exhausted. Fill in the blank. What is the word? You can't stop it if you're not willing to see it. So this one word exercise, write it on the piece of paper. And I want you to drop it in the comments below. I want you to screenshot it with your phone. It'll literally take you 2 seconds. I want you to take a picture of it and put it in the comments below so that we can see it. As a sisterhood, as a group of women, we can rally around and begin to create a pathway forward where we don't keep trying to numb out of that feeling and ignore it. Because here's the thing, whatever you resist, persists. You think by ignoring it and resisting it and not looking at it and not talking about it and not writing it on a paper, I don't want to screenshot it because then I'm admitting it. Whatever you resist, it persists, friend. It's just going to keep going. That one word is going to keep going until you admit it. And right now, what I'm proposing to you is that if you're in this group and you're kind of already a whatever it takes woman in the other meaning of it, the other definition, you're probably turning to some form of doing, serving, solving, fixing, powering through, driving through, whatever it is, to make that feeling go away. And I want to help you find a new way. I want to help you for once in your life never look back to solve this problem and never have to do this disconnect thing again. So friend, write it on a piece of paper, write it on a note on your phone, screenshot it, drop it in the comments below. Let me know if this was helpful to you, because I would love to create some more conversations like this in the future if this was. And let me know also if there's some other things that you would like to talk about. Drop those in the comments below. But I love you all, and I hope you have an amazing evening, and I look forward to seeing your comments below.